especially His Excellency Dr. Kalonzo Musyoka, who has said very kind things about my tenure as the attorney. Those views may not be widely shared, but I treasure that compliment. Now, you asked me, sir, whether we should rethink the bicameral arrangement that is in this country. The truth again is, the draft that we drew here in Bomas had the Senate as the upper house and the House and the National Assembly as the lower house. So we, the technicians, thought that that's how a bicameral legislature should work. It is the politicians who reversed the order. And in fact, it was very interesting because I remember people like my late friend and colleague, the Honorable Mutula Kilonzo, who was among those who were opposed to the arrangement in Bomas, the Honorable Kembi Gitura, another friend of mine, they were opposed. And later, they went to the Senate and found that there wasn't the work that they had gone there to do. And they wanted us to find a way, now I was in government with them, of finding work for the Senate that was equal to the status of the Senate. So this is an issue that we can, depending on how widely we want to open the reform process, it is an issue that can usefully be revisited. I personally always conceived of the Senate as the house where our more senior politicians, more experienced, much more, diplomatic, politicians would be sitting as a house of elders and so on. In fact, in some countries, this upper chamber is not wholly elected, so that it allows, for example, this is a very self-serving example. So, say a professor who has now retired from public service to sit there and comment on bills and so on. So I agree that it is an issue that we can look into. You asked me about, if we were to reduce constituencies, are we not disenfranchising people? They were used to being called Kiambu constituency, Kajiado constituency, and now it covers a whole area. I think as long as the resources are available for distribution, I don't think that people would necessarily be seriously concerned. I come from a constituency, not where we are now, and I am not very sure where it reaches to the north. I don't know how far it reaches to the south. I do know that I am here, I have a member of parliament, and I'm happy. If tomorrow I was told Westlands has been added to your constituency, I am not sure I relate specifically to the loss. If there is efficiency, I think we want members of parliament to be capacitated. It's the resource question. If the MP has the resources to look after I don't think wananchi worries so much whether they are next to each other or further away from each other. This cost of living issue, Your Excellency, this is we keep going round with it because essentially it's a resource issue. I think I personally have come to accept accept the fact that the government has no money of its own. The government has no money of its own. The government has only money raised through taxation, through borrowing, and through gifts. And we have a very complicated problem where I hear the public say, and it's a very important argument, stop taxing. Stop taxing. Kenyans usually also use the word stop overtaxing. Then they say stop borrowing. So stop borrowing and stop taxing and increase spending. Now that is an impossibility. I'm not an economist, but I am a man from the University of Life, and I know that in the University of Life, if you don't tax and you do not borrow and you have not been gifted by somebody, then you don't have it. So we must cut our cloth to fit our resources. I don't believe that we can tax ourselves out into progress. But I do think that the only thing that you can be certain as a human being is death and taxes. Those, they have to be. Now, without making light of that very important question, I think that there are tax policies, and I hear everybody around this room who is saying that tax policies must be stable. If they are not stable, an investor, and I personally worry a lot about local investors, not foreign investors. The local investor is not able to invest within a tax regime that changes too much, that is not stable. And therefore I agree with all those who have said that that is something we ought to look into. Chairman Shongo asked me about IPPG, and I think Honorable Wandati as well. The truth is this, ladies and gentlemen, and we must talk truth to each other because this is our country. This IPPG model is a horse trading model. It is a horse trading model. And I challenge you, when you retire later in the day, when you do your research, the IPPG IEBC contained individuals who were directly connected with the appointment. I can tell you there were at least 2 lawyers who were lawyers to the appointing party. So it's not as transparent as it would appear. And although it delivered one good election, we also knew that it had its own internal. So what do I think about it? I think that the model that works is a professionalized model. Is the one we have now professionalized? Sufficiently, but not fully. And that's where we need to fix. We need to fully professionalize. And this now brings me to the question by Honorable Wandati. I agree entirely that part of the crisis that arose out of the unilateral appointments that came post IPPG, because those unilateral appointments created the political impression that there was no commitment to fairness. And I agree that that was not the right thing to do. And maybe had that not been done, probably the crisis that we had in 2007, 2008